The Deebo Samuel deal is done. So is this always about money, Albert?
No, I actually don't think so. Like, I do think it's about role. And, I think last year, if you look at the story of their season, it's really interesting. I believe through 9 games, he was second in the league in receiving yards. And then, I think that Rams game was the Monday night game where his role started to change. And from that point forward, he was arguably the most valuable player on the team, but probably the third guy in the passing game behind Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, if you look at the numbers. And so, I think part of this was how Deebo envisions himself as being a true number one receiver. And that's sort of what he aspires to be. The other piece of it is the obvious, which is playing. I mean, the guy wasn't getting the ball in jet sweeps and stuff. They were playing him as an I formation tailback. You know what I mean? I think there's a longevity piece to this too. And knowing the more he played like that, especially with his injury history, it could affect his shelf life. And so, and I think as much of this as anything else is about, leaning on the relationship you have with the player. If you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, finding a way to talk to him about how you plan to use him going forward and give him assurances that he's going to have a say in the way that he's used. And that's the way it works with athletes at a lot of levels now, So I think the money was never going to be a problem. And if you look at the deal, it's actually a market deal. It's right where Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf, it's right where those guys got paid. The contracts all look relatively similar. So the template was there. And I don't think the Niners were ever afraid to pay Deebo the way that a guy like Metcalf or a guy like McLaurin was paid. I think as much as anything else, it was about Deebo feeling comfortable that he wanted to sign away the next 4 years of his life to play in San Francisco based on what happened at the end of last year.
So does that mean we're going to still see him get the same number of touches at running back, and he'll just trust the process, or has there been some sort of a deal struck between coach and player?
On the internet there, the name escapes me, and I feel like a jerk, but there was a running back they took out of LSU in the 3rd or 4th round. If one of your guys has it there, I can't remember the guy's name. But
Brockman is Googling as we speak. Go for it.
Okay, they drafted him in the third or 4th round, right? That was after they drafted Eli Mitchell and Trey Sermon last year in the 3rd round and the 6th round, right? I was told that part of drafting that LSU running back, and not that they didn't like the player, they obviously liked the player, but drafting the LSU running back was sort of an olive branch to Deebo in saying, hey, look, we're trying to build depth at that position so we won't have to do this ever again, because part of it last year was they didn't have enough quality depth at that position. So they're saying to Deebo, essentially, we're drafting this extra running back here, even though we took 2 last year as sort of a symbol to you. We're really trying to fix that position so you can play the sort of role you envision for yourself.
Tyrion Davis-Price, the running back from LSU, he also pays his debts like all Lannisters as well. Third round pick. Yes. So
that's a pretty a year after using 2 draft picks on running backs, right? That's a pretty valuable piece of draft capital to be using on a position that a lot of people don't value that way, right? So, that was very much, I know that's part of the thinking for the Niners, that was sort of an olive branch to Deebo. We're trying to make that position, to stock that position in a way where we won't have to use you in that role again.